Are you just using this space? You're renting it for this?
Yeah. So
okay.
So yeah, essentially that was the idea. Is that like I'm doing this public speaking.
Okay.
Getting into corporations, businesses, and high schools, elementary schools, events. You know, a lot of roundups. Like Guelph is beautiful because it's got like the big beat, which meets quarterly and ushers in the new energies on the equinoxes, and it's got lots of nice stuff like that. I think there's also, they have the what's that festival called? Hillside in the summer, and I think they just had Hillside Inside for the winter. So so that was my thing. It's like, well, in the meantime, you know, like, it's a vocation, right? It's like, it's not just like, you know, for me charging for my service or something like that. Like, it's like I gotta eat, but at the same time, it's like, it's a vocation. You know, money is because money exists. But the vocation is because the desire to do it is there. So that's why, yeah, I just figured. I was introduced to Ten Cardin through a service job I was doing with a local food hub for Wellington. And essentially, yeah, so I learned about this place, and yeah, it really is, like they got the poster up there, it really is just kind of a platform for these kinds of conversations and networking and startups. Anything social change, social innovation, and the broad umbrella that is and what it covers. So yeah, so this space is just being rented, and yeah, I got it more or less indefinitely. I plan to do these every Monday and go from there.
Okay.
Wow. Initially, when I was introduced to this, you brought up the point of money versus vocation and people not liking or feeling trapped into doing something they don't like for money.
Right.
And you brought up the concept of, you introduced the concept of dharma with income.
Right. And exactly, and that's it. And I was talking to someone else the other day, and they were talking about the topic of courage. And I was saying, yeah, like, you know, the thing with courage is it's kind of like, you know, it's not something you always need to act out on in a big time. Like, you think like medieval times, like whenever there was wars, like, you know, there's people in the army, but big wars only happen once every couple of years or a decade or decades. You know, you may only have to really act out on courage like once or twice in your whole life, but for those times, they're more than a lifetime's worth of courage acted out on. So I believe for us in society, a big thing is we need to have this big jump of courage where we literally take away our obligations and take away our budgeting and all these things and how is it going to work, and our, you know, and really throw ourselves into what do I want to do, what do I like to do, what am I passionate about. And I believe even the step before that, if people aren't at that step, and many people are not, is we need to step back, we need to go to places like ashrams, we need to take some time, we need to smash the old ideologies, go deep with meditation, deeper than we know where we are, find ourselves again, and then create from a place of that. So there's many phases, right? There's that. So that's what, yeah, so go ahead.
No, I said you're absolutely right, but how do you break this information into a system that is designed with need as a big part of it? Because you need a job, you need money, you need to survive.
Right. Well,
and that's where the trap comes in. And so even from being a young person in the society, the concept of need is great.
Right, and I think that's the thing too, is because even that concept, the answer to that question goes even outside of the line of thinking. It goes into a whole another world of thinking of it's just right now. That like my intuition is the compass of my soul, and I will do what I need to do, and I will figure it out, and no one can do that for me. So if there was any system, it would be essentially empowering people to hear just what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
is that there's no ashram, there's no religion, there's no nothing that is going to allow you to stand on your own 2 feet. You're going to have to learn to do that yourself as a soul in creation, to essentially deconstruct yourself and get back to the ultimate soul, as we were talking about before, the concept and a goal of enlightenment. Eating, all these things, where you eat, who you meet, what you do during the day, how you fill your time, how much you sleep, how much you don't sleep, your kids, your family, your worries, your troubles, all these things, right? Like, you never know. And then you throw in the seasons, the ebb and the flow of creation on a very, very micro scale. You never know how you're going to navigate any moment until you're at that moment, until you're that person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just, you know, the reason I do this, it's a bit of a redundancy when you start talking about non-duality and stuff like that, and because, well, it helps, but it will hurt you too, I think. For me, it's hurt me. I was going to say, just essentially like, I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for teachings, but essentially you have to go beyond teachings. And I had to go beyond teachings because when I applied those teachings to some situations, I ran into delusionment that I lived and operated on for a while, and it ultimately resulted in a lot of suffering until I went back and started to just realize my own self.
Mm-hmm.
So the teachings are like a temporary thing, and then you have to let go back to the unknown.
It's like alchemy. Experience is the catalyst that burns away, I don't want to say false teaching, but false constructs in our head.
Right.
Well, what you eventually arrive at, and on some level everyone intuitively already knows this. Even that monstrosity called the capitalist system that we have. Because I always say to people, what's the most important part of a resume? To any HR person, right? Like, you know, there's a formula for a resume, right? Yeah. This is you, right? This is to a capitalist system, right? This is you. This is who you are on paper, right? So what's the most important? What's the most important part of that resume, right?
I couldn't tell you.
It's the keywords.
No, it's the experience. Nobody cares. Nobody cares how well you did in school. Nobody cares what degrees you have. Nobody cares how smart you are. They don't care what your hobbies are, what your interests are. None of that stuff matters to them. They all rip off the first page, and they go to that second page, experience. What did you do?
Right.
What were the outcomes? What were the results?
Right.
But
are they measurable and recognized by others?
That's a metric and a kind of judgment that they bring to the table.
Yeah.
But intuitively, or on some level, they know that experience is how someone grows. Experience is how someone learns. Experience is how you really know whether or not somebody can do something or not, or can do what they say they can do, or do what they think they can do, is all based on, have their experiences laid the foundation for that. And this is what mastery is. I mean, there is no you can't read a book, put the book down and say, I'm a master now. Why? Because if you memorize all of Shivananda's works, you can memorize them, know them off by heart. Are you any closer to being a master than you were when you sat down? No, you are no closer to being them. You might have the tools, you might have the signposts, but that's like me standing in JFK Airport, looking at the board of all the flights and all the destinations, and saying, because I know and have seen all those flights going to all those destinations, I'm a world traveler. No, obviously that's ridiculous, right?
Right.
And yet so much of contemporary spirituality, so much of contemporary knowledge that passes for knowledge these days. People who have read lots of books, they've studied the work that other people have done. This is especially true in science, where some guy does a study, a double-blind experiment, and he does this study and da-da-da. And what happens? Some person somewhere says, I'm going to find the answer. And how does he find the answer? By reading about a dozen different studies that were done. As a dozen different experiments were done. And I have taken what they have done, and now I have the answer. I know what the truth is. But that person is standing in JFK Airport, looking at the bulletins of the flights that have departed and returned. And he's taken down that information, he's compiled it, and he says, this is the nature of the world. This is not knowledge. This is called thinking. This is called illusion. This is the illusion. This is the mind's trickery. Experience is what gives us knowledge, unshakable knowledge. And there's really crude examples of this. If I tell you it's really cold outside, do you know it's really cold outside? Depending on your trust in me, you might believe that it's cold outside because I just told you. But do you really know that it's cold outside? And yet, if you get up and go outside, will you know that it's cold at that point? That's the difference. That's the difference between what we think we know and what we know. That which we experience directly. And that is the key to all of this, and the key to the courage that people need to have. And I think that's, you brought it up at the beginning, this courage that people need to let go of the illusion, to let go of the belief systems, which is the fear. For example, the need for security, the need for comfort, that's fear. I need to have a security blanket. I need to have $5,000 in my bank account at all times. Why? Just in case. Just in case of what? Somebody told me this. It was my landlady's husband when I moved back to Toronto. He was coming and fixing some things up. And he's a really nice guy, and it was one of these relationships where the woman wore the pants. And he was just there he was the fix-it guy, right? He was really, really nice. I gave him a copy of my book, and he said, I loved your book, and we talked about it. He said, it's so easy to read, and blah, blah, blah. And he's a very simple guy. But he said something to me, and my heart rang out and said, listen to this. You're about to get one of these gems, And he said, relax. He said, all you need at the end of every month is just $1 in your bank account. That's all you need. He says, as long as you've got $1 in your account, you're good. You're okay. You're safe. And it rang out. I went, yeah, at the end of every month, if I've just got $1. Now, anybody listening to this, watching this, is going to say, that's the most ridiculous, ludicrous financial advice, the most imprudent, the most irresponsible, and they'll come up with all these different adjectives to describe what I just said there. But I have been living my life from here, following that bit of advice because my heart said, you listen to that bit of advice. You take that to heart.
Right. You
know how that is. When you hear something, it just rings true. It doesn't matter where you can read it on you can read it on a billboard. But the still soft voice says, that's gold. Right? It's almost that was placed there for you at that moment. The universe conspired for that messenger to come and deliver that nugget. I call it the breadcrumb. And if you know the fairy tale of, is it Hansel and Gretel who follow the breadcrumb trail out of the dark forest? Anyway, well, it's an archetype from the fairy tale that he follows the breadcrumb trail, and so he doesn't get lost in the dark forest. Well, it also says in the Lord's Prayer, Lord, give us this day our daily bread. and that daily bread is the manna from heaven. That's manna, the manas. Manna, it's not by accident that manna is bread, and manas, manna, a mind, of divine mind, that's from the innermost, is bread. It's what nourishes us, is what gets us through the day. Everything that we need is delivered to us from divinity. But we have to be conscious, we have to be aware to receive it, right? Manna can be falling from heaven, but if you're not outside to catch it, you don't receive. You have to receive the manna from heaven. This is an essential component of yoga, is that yoga, to have union, it's a mutual connection, it's a mutual bond to achieve yoga. It's not a one-sided thing. So it's like my description about the cat scratching at the door. The cat can scratch at the door all at once, but you got to let the cat in. So this thing about money and I need takes a lot of courage to let go of that fear and say, you know what? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Meaning, I will be want for nothing, the Lord will provide. And as long as I'm conscious, and as long as I pay attention, and I follow my intuition, I'm not going to go hungry. Or if I go hungry, then I need to go hungry right now. I need to learn austerity. I need to go on a fast. I need to do this. I need to suffer a bit. I need to learn humility. I need to know my place, or I need to realize what really matters. And I've certainly been living this, what you described. I've been living it in a very, very visceral, practical way. I mean, it's my life. And somehow, always, it just, I don't know how, I don't know where it's coming from, I didn't plan it, I'm not responsible in that sense, I don't take credit for it, just somehow out of the blue, somebody will call up and say, you know what, I need you to do this website, or I need you to this, or I need you to that, or my brother called me up the other day and said, oh, Andy, do you still have those fancy speaker stands? I said, yeah. Andy'd like to buy them from you. It's $200. I'm like, I don't need them anymore. So I sold them. And it's just little things like that. Just these little moment-to-moment little miracles.
Right.
And these, you want to call them synchronicities, or
Well, and
whatever.
I think that's the funny thing, is it comes down to is like what's gonna happen if you stop?
If I stop what?
You know what I mean? Like what is gonna happen if I stop? You know, one day I'm at work, I've worked there for 10 years. What happens one day if I just stop? You know, in general. You know, after I get declared in a catatonic state, maybe get taken to the psych ward or something like that, you know, and get released, like, that's about it. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, if a person stops, yeah, like eventually they're gonna get up to feed themselves or do something, we'll always know what to do. We'll always know where to get what we need.
What I was going to say is, what will happen is we disengage from the machine that has been determining what we do. So we switch from a mechanical to a potentially more conscious state by stopping. Because if you're living a life and it feels like a treadmill, and it's get up, go to work, come home, go to the gym, watch TV, go to bed. Get up, go to work, it's just this this repetitive, ongoing thing, and you do it because you have to pay the bills, and you have to pay your insurance, and you have to pay your car, you have to pay your rent, and you have to, all these things that you have to do. And so you're on this treadmill of this machine. That's this a machine that's running your life. And that machine is as much in your head as it is out there. So by stopping, the machine stops. And if the machine stops out there, then there's a chance that the machine up here at least is going to, either it's going to freak out, and there's a good chance it'll freak out. It'll start whizzing around and whirling around. And, what the hell are you doing? We're not paying our rent. We're not doing our this. We're not doing our that. We're going to starve. Because you know what the mind is like.
Yeah.
But if you can combine stopping with meditation, if you can combine stopping out there with, and then you do what you need to do inside to stop the machine inside, now we're talking magic.
Well, and the funny thing is I came across an article on Facebook like 6 months ago about new moon creations. About how the new moon each month, or in the moon cycle, is the time where actually like our intentions to have an extra power, and to actually just write down exactly, literally, like what you need. I need new clothes. I need a new vehicle. I need to pay my rent. I'd like my relationship with my parents to be healed. I would like a good, healthy relationship, you know, and these things. And then by meditating on what it would feel like to obtain them or get them, you literally like create these things. And I can say that, you know, actually, this worked for me. I got a new vehicle, I got a new laptop, I got a cell phone, I got a business, yada yada yada. I got these things. It worked. And so that's what I mean. Is it takes like the perfect positive, not perfect disaster, but perfect proliferating situation where the mind becomes so convinced in its ability to create with just its mind. We think, in order to get money, I need to work for money. What if you could just create it? I heard someone say the other day, I was actually a little worried, you know, for me personally, this month will be a little tight. And I heard someone say, like, you know, like, not worrying about having $5 in the bank. It's 4 more than what we already previously said we needed. But he said, like, actually, like, no, I'm going to have $1,000 by the end of this month in the bank. And it was, you know, just like that, it came out of nowhere. Like, it's something that I could have easily told myself or have known for years, but, you know, God or life on itself reminded me, and it was something that gave me that courage to actually believe in my ability to create with just my mind. And for me then, basically, to analyze that then, is how that applies to society as it is now, is to not worry about the story, about how it's going to happen, who's the players that's going to be involved, where it's going to take place, but actually just what you need and let it go, right? Like for me, I don't care where I go, I don't care where I speak at, what event, what corporation, I don't care about who, what professionals I collaborate with, what projects I do. I have no idea what I'm going to do in the years to come. But what I do know is that I'm going to be true to myself, and it's going to come from my soul. And ultimately, it's going to, for me, anyways, in my personal beliefs in yoga, karma, Buddhism, etc. and so forth, is that I'll earn enough karma for the deconstruction project of my ego. And that's it. That's the name of the game. So that's what I mean, yeah, so.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I like the name, the title, the Deconstruction Project. It's cool.
Good for you, I like that. Yeah, and see, you know, I saw another thing on Facebook which I like is, it's amazing how much we can get accomplished when we don't care who gets the credit. Like for me, like I really, I think, you know, some teachers or, you know, especially spiritual teachers or something, or aspiring motivational speakers, they give takeaways and they give tidbits, and they err on the side of not publicly making available all of their work, like say the work of Alan Watts, who you can research all 100 hours of widely available on YouTube, right? And thank God, absolutely, thank God. And I guess what I'm saying is, for me and my belief of karma and how to actually earn those seeds for our own liberation, our own proficiency in life, is that actually by giving freely of all that I have, I'm earning so much more. There's a lovely parable in the Christian Bible. It says the parable of talents. And they talk about how God gave 1, 5, and 10 talents to three men. And he sent them out into the world, and the guy with 10 talents went out and taught his 10 talents and got 10 more. And came back to God, and God said, "Thank you so much. You taught your 10 talents, and in this world you're a shepherd of a few things, but in my world you'll be a king of kings, right? In heaven." Same thing happened with the guy with 5 talents, but the guy with 1 talent had only 1 talent. And he was so afraid to lose it that he went and buried it. So when God came around and asked for his talent back, he said, "God, I got it. It's right over here. I just buried it." And he said, "You fool. I gave you this, and this is what you did with it. You could have got and taught so many people and helped other people, but you were afraid. You were afraid because you had little." And it didn't work out so well for that guy. But it's a very beautiful parable, and that's in the Bible. I think that's in in the Gospel, either Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I think maybe it's in John or Mark or something. It's good stuff. What you see is exactly right. Like, we have no idea. Like, you have no idea. Like, even maybe us three will do a TV show for Guelph, for local Guelph TV or something. I got a TV show with Orangeville and Caledon, Social Change with Thomas Wall. I've already got 2 episodes in. I've got to shoot the 3rd episode soon.
Oh, cool.
It airs in March, but it's been airing since January. So you know what I mean? Like, same thing. Like, absolutely. Like, you don't gotta worry. Don't gotta worry.
Imagination and visualization is, of course, a very powerful, creative.
I'm glad you said that.
But not all visualization and not all use of that tool is not all that can be created with it is positive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's where one's own even animalistic self can navigate that problem, right? Is that anything I imagine negatively, and we know that, like, the what did you call that? Basically, the built-in negative self-talk that basically every human being walks around this earth with.
Yeah.
It, like, learning how to not worry about those thoughts, but actually when you get the opportunity to really focus on the manifestation of very powerful things. In fact, imagination, I believe, is one of the most powerful parts in meditation. Because even say in the path of Jnana Yoga, like path of wisdom, path of actual, like, which is considered like the most direct route, it's all like basically focusing on and expounding or extrapolating on the slokas in the Upanishads and the Vedas, in the ancient texts. So it says, like, Brahman is all pervading. So you meditate on all pervasiveness. And I guess then typically we'd say is that the more imaginative power you have to do that, the more fruitful it is. Because the more you can expand upon that. And I believe a lot of that is actually sowing seeds that manifest later. Because ultimately self-realization can't be reached with any action. You can't reach an actionless thing by doing action. So what they say then is like, self-realization happens of its own accord. And and I believe that the seeds we sow in meditation create the optimal circumstance where just going about our daily day, we get great epiphanies or whatever. You could be standing in line at a coffee shop, or I don't know, in traffic. And then just good thoughts come the next thoughts. And I think that's basically my own, you know, that's a little bit of, that's how I think it works. So that's how it works for me, I guess. Right? Like, I don't know what idea is going to come, but it's going to come. Because I'm open to it. Because I'm not bogged down by obligation or fear. And then the game is that the fear and obligation is still there, talking, and I'm just holding true and fast to the fact that it's groundless. And basically the game board or the game setting for Kali Yuga. You know, a lot of it is weathering the day. Waiting for the opportunity. I much like those little animals that live at the bottom of the ocean, you know, and then they just stick their tentacles out, and then something comes by once every 10 days, and they get it. It's like that, right? Once every 10 days, and I just gotta weather long enough. No matter how much in debt I go, I just gotta weather long enough, and then my ideas, I'll be able to climb up on top of my ideas, and hopefully. And that's basically it. That's it. Because ultimately, yeah, like the belief in that I am spirit, I am all pervasiveness. This is just the entirety of creation is just creation, creating creation, and creation disseminating creation back into its non-creative, pure state. That's it. It's not budgeting and thinking about how something's going to work and analyzing, and that's all this shit and junk in between the beginning and the end. And it is what it is. It really is what it is. Because it takes a level of surrender. We see this in the life of many great saints. Look at Tesla. Look at Vincent van Gogh. It started off great, and it turned out to whatever. Look at Saint Francis of Assisi. Very very austere life just by happening. And it is what it is. You never know what's going to take you, but you'll know. You'll naturally, and that's just what I truly believe, is that if I can gain the clarity of mind through service to others, if I can buy that karmically, I can then trust my intuition. And even now I can trust my intuition to whatever degree, because my intuition will let me know about my feelings. And it doesn't matter whether I'm getting clarity on it or not, because it's the best analyzation I have. It's the best reading of the levels, of the meters in my soul, right? And that's it. Like, it's not unaustere to go to a restaurant. It's not unaustere to own a single $400,000 house. It's not. It's inausterity is completely relative. 1000%. So I mean, it is what it is.
But how you come by and acquire those things does matter.
Right, and I mean, and like I said, now we're stepping back to like the middle of the game, right? Like between, like I where I'm talking is further along. Like to go back, and that's
well. If somebody sits down, to give you an example, if somebody sits down and says, "I'm going to meditate on a Mercedes, and I'm going to put all my emotion and use all my powers of visualization and meditation and energy."
I might be guilty of this.
I can bring that Mercedes into my life.
Right.
But was I supposed to?
Who cares?
Somebody does.
Well, fuck them. No, seriously. If someone else has an opinion on what you feel you need to manifest in your life,
this other person is not outside of you. That's all.
So what you're talking about is kind of like the secret.
Yeah. the problem with the statement, I am God, I am infinite abundance, I am this, I am that, I am all of these things. The problem with that statement is that it's factually incorrect in the present moment. It is correct and it is incorrect.
Okay. So I guess the thing is, though, is that that knowledge comes down from, I guess, you know, the avatars, if you will, the rishis, and that gives us a point to imagine what we are. Not something to claim as a continual basis, but that actually, this is where the thoughts. This is why we like to see other artwork. We like to see other people's projects, or why we same thing, because it gives us, it opens up an avenue for our channel, for our imagination to, and maybe it may not be now, but that's how, you know, even the assimilation, because we digest whatever we experience through our senses. It may not be now, but maybe, you know, that in 6 months, 4 years from now, something we have experienced may lead to or have a effect in something we create.
More simple and immediate example. Do you ever cry in movies? Or music? Or any art form? Any art form that brings a tear to your eye because you're moved?
Generally devotion.
Okay.
To like masters. Like when I think of Swami Vishnu and I think about, you know, big like true like spiritual philanthropists that have really given their all, and I truly get a moment of clarity on their intent and the purity of it. Yeah, it can bring me to tears.
Okay, so when you have that kind of experience where whatever's happening here or here, or you know, here or in here, is just a conduit, a gateway, a key, into a lock. Okay, and then it turns, and then this opens up, and you well up with that emotional. That's because whatever that, for me, it's works of art like opera or a film where there's something so beautiful happening.
Yeah.
That moment is a connection that's being made with the source of that beauty, which has been encoded into that music or into that cinema or into that painting. There was that source imbued itself into that artwork and just waiting there for someone to come along and become aware of it so it can connect to the same source inside of us and make that connection. And that kind of like, if you can imagine our connection to our source as being like a little pinhole, and you stick your finger in it and you like roll it around. It's like anytime you put something through it, it gets a little bigger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You see what I mean? Like you nudge it bigger, So the reason why we like to connect with individuals who themselves feel connected in some way is because why people of faith, any faith for that matter, have always congregated for that very reason. Because by being in the company, if we think of impressions as food, and you are what you eat, if you surround yourself with people who are seeking to increase that bandwidth between themselves and their innermost, or between themselves and all things, then it makes sense that they want to be with people at the same vibrational frequency, to put it in really crude, sort of pseudo-scientific terms, right? Where I'm vibrating at a certain frequency, I have a longing to reconnect with that, with those higher things, and so I want to surround myself with people who share that, or I want to surround myself with artwork which expresses that, or I want to be involved in projects which are built on that foundation, or have attainment of that as their goal.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? So, because we want to nourish that part of us, because there's another way we can think about that little, instead of so much as a hole that we're making bigger, we can think about it as a seed that's germinating inside of us.
Right.
We can think about it as our true self, our innermost, our human soul, which is just in us a spark of the divine whole, our essence, our innermost. It's a seed. And we want to feed that seed. In us, it's like an embryo. It's like our baby. This is the secret meaning of who and what Jesus is, the Lamb of God and the Christ. Christ is not a person. Christ is a universal cosmic force that's inside each and every one of us. It's the second logos. And it is born where? In the manger, surrounded by animals. The Christ is born inside of our animalistic mind and all of our animal egos. That's where it's born. And it's born of immaculate conception of male and female, so we get into the whole white tantra aspect. But that is Christ, that is the cosmic fire, and it is born from raising the Kundalini from the root chakra, the Divine Mother Kundalini, which is fire, raised up to the crown chakra, where she copulates with her husband, the Holy Spirit, which is the divine light of the crown chakra. And between the two of them, they create the Christos force. This is alchemy of turning lead into gold. And she dissolves egos and frees consciousness and also creates the golden vestments or the Christic vestments. In other words, the seed, the spark inside of us gestates, the baby inside of us grows, and that Christ force inside of us grows. And we have to feed that and nourish that. And so, we don't smoke, right? Like pregnant women. So smoking here is a symbol, right? We don't drink excessive alcohol. If you're a pregnant woman, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't go bungee cord jumping, you don't while you've got a baby inside you. In fact, a pregnant woman really, she's living her life and she's eating, and for the sake of that other self inside of her. And she really, if she's a good mother, she devotes her life to that child even when it's a little baby. She devotes her life to that child. She's responsible for it, to bringing it into the world. These are the talents. These are the gifts that God has given you, is that seed inside of us that we are responsible for birthing into the world. And there are all of these techniques which all the religions have encoded in their scriptures, whether or not their organizations teach them or not. This is an entirely different question, or whether they understand them or even know that they're there. But every religion,
widely accessible.
At the root, the heart teachings of every great world religion, tradition, mythology, fairy tale, Shakespearean play, opera, high art, at the root of it all is that knowledge, is that divine science. And it's all inside of us. We all have access to it. And so each of us are sent on our own path and our own way, right? To arrive at that moment when we start to experience that directly. And we go, okay, wait a minute now. If what I'm giving birth to inside of me is the Christ, that's the Son of God, that's how we become the Son of Man, that's how we become a true Adam from the Kabbalistic and Judeo-Christian tradition. A real human being, because we're not real human beings right now, we're just intellectual animals. We're mistakenly called human beings. A real human being can see into the fourth and fifth dimension. A real human being can talk to animals and plants. A real human being can fly. A real human being can take his body out of the physical dimension and into the fourth dimension. Some of the yogis, which you may or may not have met, have a lot of the powers that are attributable to a real human being. Because of their discipline, because of all of these, a lot of them are able to do superhuman things. You know, I mean, there are yogis who don't eat. They live on sunlight. They live on air. They are so conscious they're able to extract the vital energies required for their vital body, and it animates their physical body purely on you know, they have these. This is what happens when we awaken our consciousness, and we get out of the mechanicity of nature, and we connect to those higher laws. We realize we are able to have these things, and a real good expression of this is in the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana with Krishna and Rama and Hanuman. And if you're familiar, Hanuman is the monkey god, right? And Hanuman gets all the powers. Rama tells him what to do, and Rama does all of this in the service of Krishna, which is the Christ. Rama is the human soul, and Hanuman is the awakened human being. Hanuman is the once intellectual animal who is given powers by his divine soul to be able to perform all these feats. And Hanuman is the one that actually goes and does all of these feats. He's the one who's given the powers, because powers that are relevant in the third dimension. But all of that comes down this ladder, this internal hierarchy, at which our innermost, our divine soul, the Christ, to use all these different words, Atman Buddhi. We're talking about Atman, right? To throw in some Buddhist words, and so coming all the way back to the question then is, when we say I am this and I am that, I'll tell you what I am, what I know, Thomas, is that I am nothing. I'm an insignificant worm. I came from the mud, I'm going back to the mud. But I am in here in the service of my innermost. I am here in the service of God, and I'm here to do His work and bring that which He is here to do into the world through me. I'm here to serve. And so long as I do that, I am want for nothing. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I don't have to worry about anything. I do, because I'm a poor, insignificant, intellectual animal who's still very much asleep, who's still very much ruled by ego, who has a personality, who has all these faults and defects and vices, which I'm very aware of because I observe myself, and I'm constantly made aware of them because of the circumstances of life and the conflicts around me and all the tests and trials and struggles and suffering, which are all a reflection of my inner psyche. And I know that in order to conquer that within myself, I have to put my faith and trust in God, and like you said, His talents, give them to others. But they're flowing through me. They're never mine. They're never mine to own. They're never mine to take credit for, and they're never mine. Ed will tell you, we talk a lot, and he can probably tell you when it's Attila speaking and when somebody else is speaking through him. And he can probably tell that better than I can myself. Because sometimes, you know, I'm also Hungarian, and I speak Hungish with my parents, which is half English, half Hungarian, and we mix it up all the time. And so but when you're in that space, when you're in that zone, and you're doing what you love, and you're doing what you're good at, and you're speaking just from your heart, and it's just, and it just, and the next word just comes, and the next word just comes, and the next word just comes, and you just share it. That's when you're really powerful, when you get yourself out of the way. And it's the same in meditation, it's the same in, really in everything. And I've talked way too long.
Yeah, we're off topic.
We're off topic.
We never answered the question about the Mercedes.
Well, but this is coming back to that whole question of who wants the Mercedes and why, and is it really what you are supposed to have? And if it is what you're supposed to have, you'll get it. You'll get it, and you'll get it without asking for it. You'll get it without praying for it. That's the point. You'll get it without